A line can be drawn around a piece of territory, and all the things inside the line described and remembered. What happens when the territory is so big it covers the world? Flipping through the Lonely Planet Guide to Croatia, I notice a strange description. The Brijuni Islands are a national park, but one with a decidedly artificial cast, where access is still restricted. The fenced area was Tito's private hunting ground, and the exotic animals held there were given to him by world leaders. What do we see when we look at animals? Surely not just what we observe. The animal's gaze refuses us, reminding us that there is something that echoes our own kind, but it always remains inaccessible, unimaginable, cryptic. The eyes of an animal, when they notice man, are attentive and careful. Other animals are captured by the gaze. Man becomes aware of himself, returning the gaze. So this was Tito's arc. A way of reapproaching nature. The arc can be read as a model for animal protection, as a shorthand for the right attitude toward nature, conserving it. I rent an electric golf cart, so no matter what happens in this big natural playground, I will stay dry. The image of the ark raises the lifeboat question. Who is allowed to on the boat? What about the insects? The biophilia theory. It is natural for humans to focus their attention on living things. The theory assumes that those of our ancestors who were most at ease in their environment were most likely to survive natural selection. So I try to relax. In the safari park, the animals shy away from my gaze. The zebras eat in a faraway corner. Elephants, Sonia and Lanka, a present from Indira Gandhi, disappear into their house. And the sea lion pool has long been empty. The sea lions, a gift from another politician, just swam away during a flood. The water level was rising, and they were off into the wide open sea, never to be heard from again. I imagined them swimming up and over the fence, or maybe they escaped through the back door that was left open, like it is right now. Insular thinking can become a boomerang. It's common for us to use animals. They help us understand ourselves better. Author Akira Mizuta Lippitt writes that today animals are more present in our thoughts than ever, because they are much less present in our everyday lives than ever. All early evening TV takes place in the zoo. Watching East and West German penguins reuniting, or a baby kangaroo receiving medical attention, moves everyone. Striking images of animals are in great demand by global advertisers. In contrast to images of humans, age, race, class, and culture do not interfere with identification and the desire to acquire. All familiar landscapes are economies. Some to make money, others to protect a certain area, while others to make things more pleasing. Landscape is not neutral or transparent. It is a highly encoded text in which ownership, myth, identity, and nationality are inscribed. Flagpoles on the street lamps throughout this island remind me of this. Nature is where Bambi lives, cinema tells us. Cuteness is linked to empowerment. Small children are the incarnation of this cute aesthetics. We associate their vulnerability with our own understanding of authority. That's why cute things are so calming. And it still works even if we know the trick. The weakness of others is moving. It encourages us to proudly point out our own charity. Behind the curve, on a road with no signs, is where I stumble upon the open-air cinema. The entire seating area is buried under a huge pile of sand. That pile of sand must have been there for quite some time, at least according to the tracks made by deer, the only cinema goers. Nature is like a deer's child, innocent, sweet, soulful, beautiful, and pure-minded. This Bambi nature makes young people feel an intense urge to help and to care. While they are convinced the image of the big bad wolf doesn't apply to them, they still consider fellow members of their species as the big bad wolf. We have to face it. Animals are inarticulate. They do not leave documents. The only perspective we have is the one we already know. That's how we can just forget about their situation. But what to eat and to wear? The footprints deer make are called tracks. Deer leave very fine traces. Their prints are like coffee beans. When deer flee, they jump about 4 meters at a time. When they land, their split hooves open and their claws make 2 little dots. They are always running away from something, never towards something. The various shapes in their tracks reveal that there are several different visiting hours that the deer come here. This creates overlapping prints depending on the sand's scent and moisture. Because of the overlapping tracks, it is hard to tell how much time the deer have spent at the cinema. The Bambi syndrome is also a common concept in politics. Tito was successful in making use of such a transformation here on the island too. They say that some of deer can recognize certain tour guides' voices and even come when they call. Domestication degrades brain capacity. An original wolf might say to a dog, "You have lost your freedom. Your subservience is a disgrace of our entire species." The dog could reply, "I am much less warlike, far more altruistic, and besides, it's a wonderful standard of living." The history of the zoo started as a hobby for a few monarchs. To a great extent, the zookeeping spirit of Noah is highly personalized. There are no deer but Bambi, no dolphins but Flipper, no elephants but Jumbo and Dumbo. Santa Zoo is off the beaten track. It was closed in the late 1980s because the new regulations suddenly required open ranges for animals kept in national parks. Zoomorphism is acquired. In contrast, anthropomorphism occurs, so to say naturally. Here are a few objections. A. Anthropomorphism entails a category mistake. To speak of a dog that has a feeling of shame is like describing a music piece by Bach as violet. B. Anthropomorphism is defined as an overestimation of similarities between humans and non-human beings. Therefore, per definition, an exact description is not possible. C. Humanization is necessary or unavoidable, because there is no such thing as amorphism or neutral language for describing behavior. In the universe, entropy is continually increasing. Everything is rushing toward a state of disorder, and at the same time, toward equal distribution. Living organisms are negative entropies, that is, orders, asymmetrical systems where particles are unequally spread. We are information. The bare area is well thought out. In the center there is a cake plate-like platform, a raised stage with a small pool to show off the bears bathing. If you look closely, you can see it has become the ideal place for lizards. The rock stairway was probably a lookout point. All areas are connected through iron trapdoors, although I can't imagine what they were for. I doubt the bears went to the lions area for a visit. The mountain in the next area is a reminiscent of film set architecture. It's now overgrown. Here entropy is at an advanced stage. The visitors stroll from one area to another. It's not much different from a gallery. But no matter where you look in the zoo, it's always the wrong way. And because the animals are indifferent to the onlookers and don't return their gaze, people witness something purely incidental. They become marginal, a disappointment. In the next area, the hierarchy of the gaze remains the same, but the architecture is more modern. I found a picture in a book at the flea market. It was the lions area. The structure looks like an abstract landscape or ocean waves. It could have been considered as an image or a metaphor. Its constructivist features are obvious to see. Honesty was a dogma of modernity. In this sense, pseudo-nature was its enemy image. I tried to find a way to climb down into the fenced area so I could turn the gaze around and look at things from a lion's perspective. But the whole area is completely tumbled down. Like I said, zoomorphism is more difficult. The fenced-in areas for the animals are the only places on the island you won't find any deer droppings. The Arctic bunnies apparently didn't survive the warm climate. The museum entails a display of photos documenting Tito on the island. They all look like he's on vacation. Somehow the Bambi syndrome comes into my mind again. The natural history collection is below it on the ground floor. It includes hunting trophies and gifts Tito received. A truly posthumous encounter. The thingness of the less than fully humans makes it easier to display them. This also makes for a ceremonial atmosphere. It reminds me of Lenin in his mausoleum. A collision of darkness and light makes his face come alive, like he could move at any given moment. The technique of taxidermy is, above all, a way of creating something new. It is reserved for wild animals. It's not for pets. It's about telling stories. Turning the animal's head fixes it in an expressive, typical pose that tells of a life that would otherwise remain beyond our horizon. I notice that what I've been doing since I set foot on this island is camera hunting. A book from the 1970s says that Tito always pointed out what extraordinary pleasure it was for a hunter to manage to successfully capture on camera a rare, attractive wildlife. This is by far the dearer trophy than the one you can win with a rifle. He advised hunters to engage also in this kind of hunting, because it offered a specifically pleasant diversion and the possibility of tracking down and studying wildlife and its habits, by also indirectly protecting wildlife as a social treasure. Photography and taxidermy are closely related. The cutting irony of taxidermy is, of course, that the animal has to die in order to become as true to life as possible in its reanimation. First it has to die. Then all the traces of killing are erased. I wonder where Tito kept all these hunting trophies and taxidermied animals before this museum was built. Generally, there are a large watchful male, a female or two, and a baby. There may be another young male animal here or there, but never an aging or deformed beast. They are supposed to represent the essence of a species as a truly dynamic and lively collective. Taxidermy supply companies have a large assortment of body forms, glass eyes, tongues, and mounting kits to choose from. The website writes, "Mounting the skin makes you think you are creating a live animal. Add leaves or a snow base, and it is like putting the animal back into nature." Ironically, not only humans are attracted by the realism of taxidermy. A study in the journal Wildlife Management reports that living animals sometimes mistake a taxidermied animal for a fellow of the same species. Each diorama has at least one animal that grabs the visitor's attention. One that is always prepared to cry out and alarm the others about the human's presence, but at the same time it is willing to hold the gaze forever. This is the moment of truth, the real encounter. It seems so fragile, as if the animal would disappear at any moment, as if the encounter could pass at any moment. Taxidermy satisfies the fatal desire to represent, to become complete and immortal. It is a politics of reproduction. It's impossible to make an outstanding animal shot. They are like islands, self-contained, inaccessible entities that we are not allowed to enter. I recall the picture on the cover of the map of Briuni. A rendered globe, the only land in the middle of the sea. A self-contained cosmos, like a blow-up beach ball floating in a blue ocean. If a lizard or a deer is standing at a certain spot, it's neither accidental nor free. Both announce a pattern, an intention. Everything else is projection.